Nessun dormano besto bocaroido performance contestono.
Vertigo is a sound installation meant as a contemporary interpretation of a centuries-long journey of a part of Nizami Ganjavi's poem. Written in the 12th century, the Seven Beauties has non-linear structure and multiple narratives. 7 stories about various colors, narrated by 7 beauties to the King Bahram throughout a week, are the parables about the qualities that a ruler should have in order to be a successful king. Narrated on Tuesday, the day of planet Mars, the story by Nazrin Nush, the princess of the fourth clime, was about color red. A Slavonic beauty in her story was very wise and self-sufficient and declared to marry only her equal. In order to do so, she tested all her suitors with the riddles, and those who failed to answer the riddles were losing their life. The story of this princess later appeared in a number of literature works. In the 18th century, it was a part of the 1001 Day book written by François Petit de la Croix. Later, it was picked up by Carlo Gozzi and then Friedrich von Schiller for their place. Nizami's nameless princess of Slavonic lands became Turandot, the princess of China. The plot became even more famous when a number of composers wrote operas on this subject. Among them were Carl Maria von Weber, Ferruccio Busoni and Giacomo Puccini. Riddles continue also in Vertigo sound installation. Visitors have 2 options to choose from: an open sound installation and an experience of walking through the exhibition with radio and headphones. The latter allows more personal experience, since depending from the physical location of a visitor and his proximity to one of the 5 radio transmitters, the sounds that he hears might differ. Vertigo, with its non-linear structure and overlapping sound, blurs gender stereotypes and highlights cross-cultural fertilization that takes place throughout human history. We have a number of recurring themes, one of which is Nessun Dorma aria, which is traditionally performed by a tenor, a male voice, in Giacomo Puccini's Turandot opera. In our interpretation, is sung by contratenor, whose voice is very similar to female voice, then by Vocaloid program, and a chorus of female soprano voices. We also took a very famous classical piece, Le Cygne, or The Swan, written in the 19th century by Camille Saint-Saëns, and transformed it from classical European performance into Oriental music traditions by rewriting and rearranging the score so that it is performed by traditional Azerbaijani music instruments in various modes of mugham. Visitors exploring the exhibition have multiple entry points and could experience Vertigo for a few minutes or up to 1 hour in order to unlock all the riddles and the content that is simultaneously channeled in 5 radio transmissions.
I've got the idea about several radio stations when I was crossing the border between Azerbaijan and Georgia. When I was at Azerbaijan part. I was listening to Araz radio, and when I crossed the border, this radio channel started to fade away more and more, and after a few kilometers, suddenly a Georgian channel appeared on the same frequency. So in this project I have decided to make a few radio channels, to put few radio transmitters in one room, and by wearing headphones and having a radio receiver in your hands, you can switch the channels just by moving in the room, in the space. So back in the days, people was caring more about the content, but not about the quality all the time. So people were hungry for information, and even now in Azerbaijan it's possible to find some AM channels of Iranian radio stations or Turkmen in really low quality, but you can listen to some music and voices, something like that.
نحتفل بالراديو ونحتفل عبر أثير مونتي كارلو الدولية في هذا اليوم الخاص، اليوم العالمي للراديو، وبالطبع لقاءات عديدة وأشخاص.
While writing a script, I kept asking myself, who is our protagonist? What thought does she has in her head? What is she dreaming about? After all, she was, in one way or another, a prototype of a strong woman who, despite different cultural periods in our history, has always existed in our society. According to Nizami's plot, intelligent and well-read princess, tired of numerous admirers, secluded in the tower. In today's world, she might be able to translate her thoughts and desires and fears through the social networks. She could have a conversation without getting into the physical contact with a person. But in the 12th century, this, of course, wasn't possible. That's why we thought that the script would be an imitation of 5 radio channels that would broadcast the inner world of our protagonist. I should mention that I continued the tradition of Nizami to ask riddles, and it's done in multiple languages. For voiceovers, we attracted professionals from Italy, Germany, England, and the United States. Along with my poems, you can also hear a passage from Turandot play in translation of Friedrich von Schiller. It should be noted that Schiller's play was based on Karl Goethe play. In his version, although the princess was not cruel, on contrary, she was a romantic girl who followed her moral and ethical principles. That's why this passage is accompanied by my lyrical poem in German translation. Italian canzone, written on my poem Sound of a Woman and Azerbaijani composer Rəssam Fərhad, performed by a tenor from Italy, is another artistic improvisation as a reference to Giacomo Puccini's opera Turandot. In one word, each element of this project is surrounded by cultural metamorphosis, preserving the principle of Chinese whisper.
Ich nun dieses eine, aber ganz besondere Herz erobern kann. Das Herz, das eigene Spuren legt und in keine Falle gerät. Das Herz, das jedes Rennen als erstes beendet. Das Herz, das starke Böen und Stürme übersteht.
First of all, about the title of the project, of the work. Why Vertigo? In our case, we had in mind rather a mystical Sufi notion of being off balance in order to get to higher levels of consciousness, of touching the truth. So somehow when you enter this installation, you also could feel that not everything is clear, not everything is heard clearly, and sometimes some other sounds disturb you. Actually, we invite everybody to be a little bit off balance, a little bit puzzled, a little bit thinking about how to disclose the meaning and how to solve the riddles. Something which Princess Turandot was putting as a task before everybody who would like to be next to her. So You should feel yourself Calaf entering Turandot's palace somehow and solving different riddles. And in this case, these riddles are sound riddles. One of important and strong metaphors for us in this artwork is the principle of Chinese whispers, which is a fun game. But for us, it is somehow a reflection of the whole process of development and movement and change in human culture. Because each of us is a bearer of some cultural notions and ideas and plots, symbols and so on. And each of us is interpreting and passing it over to others with a personal touch. So we usually pass on what we have got from our predecessors or from our surrounding with our interpretation, consciously or unconsciously. So in this way, we try to make a mockery of famous and well-known musical parts or, let's say, notions and plots. And in such a way, so everything you hear here is a kind of endless Chinese whispers.
Speranza